Hi everyone, I'm Carlota Pico from the Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here today with Marta Izquierdo, who is EMEA Head of Marketing at IG and has over 15 years of experience in marketing and communications. Welcome, Marta, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Content Mix.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. It's always great to have a local Spaniard with me on the show.
Sure.
Marta, to get this interview started off, I'd like to learn a little bit about your background, a bit about IG, and how you got into your current role.
Yeah. So I have a background in journalism, and then I went into corporate communications with some training and experience. And I joined IG almost 13 years ago, actually. So that's a long time now. I've been going back and forth into marketing and business side of things on the Spanish level. So I was the marketing manager for the Spanish office and then head of Spain for about 6 years. And very recently, not even a year ago, I was made head of the European marketing. So really excited about that in such a new role. For those not familiar with IG, we're a global company offering trading services. So we are communicating to an educated and decisive and adventurous client that wants to trade the financial markets, and we aim to offer them the best trading experience. And the way we interpret that trading experience is not just through a state-of-the-art platform, but also through content, education, customer service, and overall the best platform and mobile apps out there.
Right, excellent. Well, it's no secret that COVID-19 has impacted industries across all fields and worldwide. So I'd love for you to walk us through best branding and storytelling practices, tips, and insights for the financial service industry during these very unstable times.
Yeah, sure. So I think it came quite naturally to IG because we are 100% digital. And of course, we have offices in the markets we operate into, but we are digital in a sense that clients can apply for their online trading accounts online and they get them open online, fund them online, trade online. So it came very naturally for us to be able to offer business continuity almost as business as usual during these very uncertain times with COVID. I think what we did really well towards our clients was a part of the business continuity is almost like the hygiene factor, right? Of course, clients are expecting top level service regardless of the current situation, but we were also able to connect with them and remain relatable in these very strange times by still putting content out there. But our analysts were now recording from their homes, which I think made them much more relatable. If you are logged in and you really need to stay at home, you're still consuming content and you want to be up to speed with the current affairs. However, it would feel very relatable if the analyst was in a very fancy studio, like in the studios that we have in our offices. And instead of that, they were recording from home and they were still keeping up with the markets. They were still putting content out there in a very good shape, but from home. And they even took this route of instead of wearing a suit and tie as usual, they were much more casual. And I think that was a great way to connect with our audience because it's what our clients were experiencing as well. And I think it's important to stay relatable to them and keep the aspirational side of things, but at the same time, show that you're real. It's not just some brand, some logo. It's real people struggling just like everyone else, but keeping up with a great job.
Mm-hmm. Marta, so basically what you were doing is you were humanizing your in-house talent in order for them to be able to connect and relate better with your audience.
Correct. We made a really conscious effort about making our staff, our people, a priority, and it was very important for the company that everyone felt safe in their jobs and comfortable at home and that we had all the resources. And I think the next step was, okay, now that everyone's safe, let's also make sure that we're still offering the same best trading experience that I was mentioning before to our clients. And let's show the real IE people by showing our analysts at home and recording content from home or writing articles from home. Obviously, in an article, you cannot really tell, but I think it was, yes, a way to humanize and to really put a face to the red logo.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about storytelling practices? What storytelling practices have you been developing over the course of COVID-19 in order to better relate with your audience?
Mm-hmm. I think really during COVID, there was so much financial content to share, and the financial markets, if you've been following, the volatility over, especially March and in April, it was through the roof. So we really didn't have to go very far. We didn't have to think about storytelling. It was pretty much a matter of keeping up. I think we've done our best in terms of storytelling maybe earlier at quieter times when the financial markets are not going crazy like they've been in the past months. And I think maybe a very good example, again, in the Spanish office is the local team did these very nice client testimonial videos. And with this YouTube campaign with real clients sharing why they became traders, why they like about trading. I think the best part of it is that, and there's like a series of videos, and of course there's one talking about why IE, why did you pick IE as your trading for provider. However, the one that we actually promoted, the one that we did paid social about, was not about IE, was literally about why did you become a trader? Why is it that excites you about trading? And I think it was such a big success with really a quite small marketing budget. I think the reason for that is that it was completely authentic and genuine. It was real clients that we invited over to our headquarters in London, and we simply interviewed them. And and you can tell in the video, there's some footage about them hanging out with the other clients, having a chat with our desks, our trading desks, and having a look at the technology behind the service that we offer. And you could tell they were genuinely enjoying themselves, learning more about the company. So the interviews were really candid about what each one of them likes and why they started trading and everything. And that's a very good example of how you need to put your audience at the forefront. You need to be valuable to them, and you need to be really respectful of the time they set aside for you. Like if someone is willing to watch a 3-minute video, 3 minutes of your time is actually very valuable to us. And we respect that we need to give you high quality content, maybe with financial analysis around COVID time. That was all we did because there was so much to cover. But for quieter periods, it's about the trading experience and the sort of clients that we like to onboard and engage with. And I think it's about keeping it authentic and relevant at all times.
Okay. Um, Still focusing on COVID-19. Myself, I went obviously through very uncertain times when it comes to my financial assets and also investments. And one of the people that I kept on looking towards was the director of my bank, who kept on reassuring me that my investments were safe, that everything was going to be okay, that yes, the markets are very volatile and fine, they have dipped quite a lot, but to keep my investments where they were because pulling them out at this moment would have been or would be worse later on. So were you
Correct.
also sending those type of like reassuring messages to your clients in terms of, okay, we are all experiencing very unstable and troubling times and nobody knows what the future has in store, but I want you to rest assured that we're doing the best to be able to provide you with the best analysis and also the best way forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's one of our main USPs. I mean, we're a very strong and secure company to trade with. When it comes to trading, we're talking money and we're talking volatile, fast paced investments, like very short term investments in our case. And therefore, you really need to trade, you need to pick a provider that really is stable and safe for you to trade with. We are listed on the FTSE 500 and 250, and we really make a point of, we are heavily regulated, heavily compliant everywhere we operate into. This is extremely important because you will always find all the brokers that maybe operate in jurisdictions where the regulation is laxer, maybe, and therefore maybe your funds are not that safe with them as they would be with us. And also, we have a over 40-year history. So obviously, you need to pick very wisely. So we were at all times reassuring clients of our stability, but also I think it's important to notice that the main proof is that our platforms were stable, our platforms were safe, and obviously you can always fund or withdraw your funds at any given time. And it's also a matter of our clients actually thrive in volatile times because of the type of products that we offer. As I say, it's short term, it's really fast paced investments, and therefore they actually look forward to volatility, and they really enjoy those times where the markets are really moving very much. So I think for them it's not so much a matter of um, not wanting the volatility, but really picking the safest provider to trade with.
Okay, excellent. I do want to zoom into the millennials and also the Generation Zs. According to a
Sure.
recent study published in the Financial Times, over 70% of young people will manage their financial lives exclusively via digital channels by 2023. So that's right around the corner. Keeping that in
Yep.
mind, what are some of the latest or hottest financial services marketing trends?
Yeah, and that's interesting. And I think I would also mention that our client base is also very tech savvy, and I think for the target audience that we communicate to, that's a reality already. We don't have to wait some years, right? They can apply for our CFD or Turbo accounts online. They have the account open online. They fund digitally, so it's all digital, and that's something that we've been probably leading with for a long time. In line with that, obviously, we keep a digital journey in everything we do, from marketing to customer service, from chatbots that we've been having for I don't know how long, but maybe for about 5 years now, to also developing really comprehensive and really exhaustive um, help and support portals where you can just search what you're hoping to find, because we find that most of the questions that we get through the chat box are pretty similar at the end of the day. And granted, it's always more convenient to chat with an IE representative than to give us a phone call. However, we also find that our clients tend to prefer just searching and typing and getting an answer right away. And even if the chat box waiting line is for like 2 minutes, which is not that bad, but still, I think it's important to offer information that is readily able for clients to look into. And I think other than that, it's very important to make sure that the account opening process is really smooth and really seamless while going digital, and that you can simply scan your ID card or whatever document you need to upload and have someone looking at it very quickly. Similarly, I think the client journey or the user journeys overall, they need to be seamless as well. I think you need to be very mindful of your audience, and you need to make sure that you're talking to them in a relevant way at any given stage. And I think the journeys are getting trickier and trickier, right? Because now with social, there's content out there. We have the newsletter, we have the podcasts, there's YouTube videos coming up every day. And so it's really tricky to figure out where the user is, unless they're a client. In that case, that's easier. But so I guess it's about really having a very detailed user journey, so you're communicating with your audience in the right way, in a relevant manner at all times.
Okay. Marta, are you also incorporating data into your strategy, like using this data in order to zoom into your potential clients?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the first step was really looking at our client base, just to make sure that we are offering that best trading experience. And obviously clients are always going to be in the forefront of our minds, because we breathe and live for our clients, and we need to make sure that we're understanding what sort of technology they're after, what sort of markets they would like to trade. So we offer 70,000 markets to trade into. That's a lot, but that's precisely because we want to cater to every single one of our clients. And we had last financial year, we had 130,000 active clients, which is, as you can imagine, very diverse. We're a global company. And then we incorporated that into the prospect, or into the brand awareness and brand consideration. So we keep a very close eye on what media they are consuming, what social media they're using, or more specifically, the way they use it, what sort of content they're hoping to get, what sort of analyst they would like to follow, not just within IG, but also from competitors, or not from competitors, sometimes from banks. So absolutely, I think data is making everyone's lives easier, especially when it comes to communicating. As I said, you want to stay relevant to what they're hoping to get.
Mm-hmm. So with 130,000 clients worldwide, I'm assuming that you have several different personas in your marketing strategy. So you have the persona who might be very digitally aware and tech savvy, but then you might have the persona who's from an older generation that may prefer human to human interactions.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And not just into the interaction with our teams, our client facing teams, but also when it comes to the type of product that we offer. We recently launched Truvos, which are exchange traded. This was like a big pivot point for us, because in the past in Europe, for over a decade, we've been offering OTC product only, and we identified a real demand for exchange traded derivatives in there. So it's in everything we do, from product development to, of course, the platform development. If you saw the mobile trading features we had 10 years ago, you would literally laugh. But truth is, our audience is really tech savvy, as I was saying. So we do work with personas, but I think the tech savvy part of it, it's a common denominator in all of them. Again, our service is fully digital, and yes, you can call us anytime and we will pick the phone up and have a really meaningful conversation about the financial markets if that's what you're after. But 90% of our clients would rather have a fully digital interaction with us, and therefore it's mainly digital that we focus on.
Okay, excellent. Moving into localization, as IG's Spain former country manager, what regional nuances, challenges, or opportunities should marketers keep in mind when addressing the Spanish market in particular?
Yeah. I think, as you were saying, we need to be mindful of the younger generations, the new waves of traders for us, and of course, those are much more adept to social networks, to social content, to maybe using YouTube instead of Google, right? So video is becoming more and more important. This is not groundbreaking. Probably everyone listening is like, "Yeah, of course, that's been happening for a while," but I don't think we're over that yet. But of course, we also cater to a slightly older audience who is still very comfortable reading articles, and they're maybe not that comfortable watching video. Maybe they're at work and they're not that comfortable watching anything with volume. So I think it's a matter of staying relevant to them. I think, in a way, I don't think Spain is that different now that I am also looking at other European markets such as France, Germany, or Italy. I don't fundamentally see a lot of differences. I think the main thing it's about staying relevant and speaking their same language. And I know this may sound cliche, but I think one really big opportunity is making sure that the local marketing teams are in constant communication with the client facing teams, and they are very familiar with the terms and the vocabulary and the sort of trends that we're seeing in our clients. I think, um, just to give you an anecdote, our Madrid office has like an open plan. There are no offices in there. And I always loved that, because otherwise I wouldn't be speaking or listening to clients on a daily basis. And as the head of Spain, I really needed to stay in touch with my clients, but I was not picking up the phone and having meaningful conversations with them. So I think it was really important for me to be able to. And I wasn't actively listening, but there were always conversations with the new business teams in the background, and I think that was extremely valuable for me to understand the sort of words they use, the new themes, what companies they were asking about, what when cryptos became a thing. Um, how big it was, and you could really tell because every client was asking about it. So I think that's quite important. And then I would also mention, and of course, again, probably cliche, but you really need to be global. You need to leverage on the global tools and global teams and the expertise of someone who is more on the technical side of marketing. But you really need people on the ground. You need a team based in a market that you're operating into, and it's not just for the language skills. And I think more often than not in companies, I see that they're very focused on the language skills. It's not the language barrier. It's literally living in that market, being exposed to the same news, the same advertising style and techniques, and basically consuming the same information and the same content and being exposed to the same affairs that your target audience is exposed to. Otherwise, I think you would really struggle to become relatable and stay authentic to what your target audience wants to hear about.
Marta, I completely agree with you. And for those of us who are seeing our YouTube video, they can definitely see me nodding throughout your entire response. Because that's actually one of the biggest tips that I give other marketing professionals as well, is to watch the news, really to connect with
Correct.
your local audience, to understand what's happening on the ground, to understand why it matters to that particular audience, because obviously the news from the news trends we can pick up a lot on what our consumers or what our clients ultimately want, or the way that they're consuming content as well, and I think that's extremely important.
I think we tend to forget that our audience is not just consuming our content or our industry's content, right?
Yeah.
Our clients are not just reading financial news, and they're not just consuming financial media. They're whole individuals, and there's like so many facets of them. So we need to stay true to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can even just look at COVID-19, for example. The health pandemic hit really strongly in Spain back in March and April, also February a little bit, but really it started in February, moved into March, then April. May, we started seeing the numbers go down, and now we're in a situation where we don't know if we're going to be embracing a second wave of COVID 19. But the same situation is not happening in the US, for example. The US right now is facing the most troubling part of COVID 19 that we faced back in March and April. And our marketing and our communication has to adapt to local audiences, problems, challenges, and talk to them in a manner which
Absolutely.
they're able to relate to, right? Relate with that audience. So I think like community
Absolutely.
plays a huge role in the way that we're communicating with local audiences, and it's important to understand what they're going through right now at this very moment, especially with the health crisis, because every country is approaching the health crisis in a completely different manner. In order for us to be able to relate with
Yeah.
that audience, we need to understand it. We need to understand how they're going through this entire pandemic.
Exactly. And this is why I was mentioning it's so important for the marketing teams to be in constant communication with the client facing teams to make sure there's no disconnection and to make sure that we're using the right words. And this is not just for SEO, it's literally for everything. It's literally for if you're going to see a display banner, you want to make sure that the words you are using are the ones that your audience would use in their minds. Otherwise, it's probably not going to have an impact on them.
Definitely. I was working with this brand a few months ago during the pandemic, and they were doing marketing in the UK and also marketing in Spain. And their content changed completely, because whereas in the UK, people were still able to go outside, go for a run, gather in small groups. In Spain, we weren't allowed to see anybody. We weren't even allowed to leave our house. So,
Lockdown.
yeah,
Yes.
lockdown, complete lockdown. So, of course, the way that we were communicating with our local audience had to change.
Yeah. And it was really interesting to see how big brands were really shifting really quickly and how they were able to put together really nice TV ads, for example. And you could tell they probably used stock footage because you couldn't go out there and get like a production crew and put something together. So they were like assembling content, but it was so relevant. It felt so like it really hit home for me to see some of the banks or energy companies really hitting home with their messages, even if the footage was, yeah, it was canned content, right? But still, it made sense. And I think it would have been a disaster for them to try to put a different message out there, because all we could think of was a lockdown and the health states. And you need to drop what you were doing when something of that dimension arises, and it makes no sense at all, even if you have, and of course you will have your content plan and your marketing plan and your maybe a brand campaign waiting to go live, but hey, it wouldn't work. You really need to adapt.
Okay, I do want to put some of this theory into real life examples, although we have touched upon a few examples already. But zooming
Mm-hmm.
into more examples, could you walk us through some of the content marketing or promotional campaigns that you've led that have really exceeded all of your KPIs? So first, why did you leave a campaign on that topic in particular? What KPIs were you measuring, and what made that project special, or the results that you were able to obtain?
Yeah, so I already mentioned the client testimonial one. I think that was really special because there was little marketing budget behind it. We didn't know how it would turn out, and then the results were really great. I'm also thinking and linking it back to the pandemic. The Italian marketing team was working on a really nice seminar with a very famous trader, Larry Williams. And obviously, Italy was also heavily affected. This seminar should have taken place in Milan. As you can imagine, it wasn't an option anymore. So instead of canceling or postponing, because they still thought, well, our clients are home, they still want to trade. There are plenty of opportunities in the financial markets for them to trade. More than ever, we should really deliver this really great content that we had in store for them. So instead of canceling, they partnered up with a TV channel and made sure that they would broadcast the content in a very professional and high quality way. And the final result was that, I can't quite remember how many people they were expecting to gather in the hotel conference room, but let's think may have been like 300 or maybe 500 at most, right? By going digital and actually doing a very high quality content through a professional TV channel, and of course, working with Larry Williams, they were able to gather, and if I can remember correctly, over 3,000 viewers that connected to watch live. And then there was also the option to watch on demand. So it was almost like it wasn't just the silver lining. It actually made the whole event a success, because instead of limiting themselves to Milan, they were suddenly able to broadcast to the full market, which is really good. So I think that's really amazing, and that's a very good example of how you make, well, life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? And another thing that we're particularly proud of, and there's literally so much going on in Europe. We have 6 different local teams working on very different initiatives. But I think one that is it's been getting more and more successful lately is our Swedish podcast, and it's a shame that I cannot listen because I don't speak Swedish. However, they're getting over 1 million listens now and per episode, and that's amazing. And I think the part of it that's making it so successful is that instead of having only our ID analyst doing content, which is good enough because actually he is such an influencer in the Swedish market, but he is he's taking advantage or making use of his network to invite all sorts of analysts and different experts into the podcast. So again, just like with the client testimonials video, instead of making this about ID, we're not putting some ID content out there. We're literally just bringing good content, good quality content to our audience, may them be clients or not clients yet. And hopefully they will at some point realize that they should trade with us. But for the time being, he's just really, really committed to producing great content and tapping onto his network to make sure that the podcast is always interesting, valuable, and authentic. And he covers all sorts of topics. So I think that's what making the whole podcast a success. And I really recommend it for those of you that speak Swedish.
Those are excellent examples, Marta. Thank you so much for zooming into them. I mean, it's a great way of turning a really horrible situation into a really positive situation, especially for IG and for its clients and audience. Okay, we are moving into our set of rapid fire questions, which are basically your recommendations to our audience. To get this section
Sure.
started off, I'd love to learn about your source of inspiration. So, for example, an influencer or a professional role model that you really admire.
Yeah. I think other than a few really remarkable women in the IG senior management team, and I think that's my main source of inspiration, our director or our chief marketing officer, they stay super focused. They're able to really look at an array of topics and make sense out of them and stay completely strategic and keep a clear mind in all of that chaos. I guess you're probably looking for a more public answer. So I think probably the influencer that I like the most or that I follow with more with a more closely approach is probably Hillary Kerr, founder of Who What Where. She runs this amazing podcast that's probably my favorite one called Second Life, and she covers women that at some point in their careers they decided to shift lanes and go for something completely different. And I think I find that very, very inspiring. And I think the way she interviews everyone is really, really smart because she finds a way to tap into so many different aspects, not just that change of career, but also the way they went about marketing when they maybe didn't have a lot of budget in the beginning, or the way they built their network. So I would really recommend that podcast.
Okay, excellent. Now, moving into a group, a publication, or a book that you'd like to recommend.
So this year, I think the main book, so other than fiction, I've been using this book called The Daily Stoic, which is some sort of it's not self-help, but it is a book where you read one page per day. It starts with a quote by Roman philosophers, and then it gives you some insights and some words from the author, Ryan Holiday. And it's all about having clarity in thoughts and understanding what events you can control, what events you cannot control, and how you can actually, the only thing that you can control for those is your reaction to things and how to really keep your priorities aligned and not be maybe pushed around with urgent things. You know how urgent things are not necessarily important. So I've been during the pandemic, along the lockdown, with so much uncertainty, the children at home, having to work. It's been really busy and really hectic, and I find that starting off the day reading that one page and really try to stay focused and keep clarity of mind. That's been really helpful. I probably wouldn't recommend it any other year, but it's 2020. I think
Yeah.
we can all use a little bit of stoicism.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was about to say I'm going to have to buy that book myself. It'd be
I
great.
fully recommend it.
Yeah. And especially because time is limited. So only having to read one page a day is completely manageable.
Absolutely. It takes like 5 minutes, and I find that you can probably read it in 1 minute, and it's much more about, okay, thinking about it and how does this apply to my day-to-day situation. And of course, some of the pages maybe are not that useful depending on your line of work and your life situation overall. But I think it's the book to read in 2020, probably.
Okay. And last but not least, what's your favorite app at the moment, Marta?
I'd love to be original, but I think it's Instagram. It's just I found lately that traditionally I used it for, yes, for entertainment purposes, but lately with the Black Lives Matter movement, I've been using it for really like educating or re-educating myself, and I've been doing this conscious effort or following more people of color and really getting like a different view on things. I think I'm Spaniard. I live in Spain. It's not a very diverse country. I think it's about 1.5% of the population that it's Black, and therefore it's not something that I am very familiar with. And I would really like to improve myself and learn more about that. And I think Instagram has been a really good source of information.
Excellent. Well, those were great tips, Marta. Thank you so much for joining us on the Content Mix. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you and to learn about your experience
Likewise.
so far.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And thank you, everybody, for listening into the Content Mix. For more perspectives on the content marketing industry in Europe, check out the Content Mix. We'll be releasing interviews just like this one every week, so keep on tuning in. Thank you again. Have a fabulous day and see you next time. Bye.